Hello and welcome to Sticky Notes, the classical music podcast. My name is Joshua Weilerstein. I'm a conductor, and I'm the music director of the Orchestre Nationale de Lille and the chief conductor of the Aalborg Symphony. This podcast is for anyone who loves classical music, works in the field, or is just getting ready to dive into this amazing world of incredible music. Before we get started, I want to thank my new Patreon sponsors, Deb, Jonathan, Michael, Hannah, and Adam, and all of my other Patreon sponsors for making Season 10 possible. If you'd like to support the show, please head over to patreon.com/stickynotespodcast. And if you are a fan of the show, please take a moment to give us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts. It is greatly appreciated. So I'm very excited to share with you this episode all about Kurt Weill's Seven Deadly Sins, ahead of concerts that I'm going to be doing with the Orchestre Nationale de Lille, featuring the Seven Deadly Sins with the wonderful mezzo-soprano Bella Adamova in a production that is directed by Sandra Preciado and choreographed by Jess Gardelin. Really looking forward to sharing this episode with you and to talking more about this amazing production when it comes out. Hope you enjoy. The collaboration between Kurt Weill and Bertolt Brecht is rightly legendary. The two men could not have been any more different from each other. And like the Brahms-Joachim relationship I've mentioned in my recent show about the Brahms Double Concerto, the friendship between Weill and Brecht was stormy, to say the least, and I don't even know if I would call it a friendship. The two collaborated on some of the most memorable works of the Weimar era in Germany, such as the Three-Penny Opera, which features this little tune that went on to be pretty famous.
Der Haifisch, der hat Zähne und die trägt im Gesicht. Und Bekies, der hat ein Messer, doch das Messer sieht man nicht. An dem schönen blauen Sonntag liegt ein toter Mann am Strand und ein Mensch geht die Ecke.
Don't recognize it? Well, how about this version?
Dig, man, there goes Mac the knife.
Brecht and Weill collaborated on two more operas, though I say the word opera with a bit of a grain of salt. The Rise and Fall of Mahogany and Happy End were the two, and we'll get into the complications of both of those pieces later on. Their final collaboration was on the, quote, sung ballet, the Seven Deadly Sins, the main topic of the show today. This is a piece that was written at a point of remarkably high tension within Weimar Germany. On an artistic level, the 1920s and early 1930s had seen a veritable explosion in the world of culture, with art, dance, theater, and music all featuring artists who were pushing the boundaries with wild experimentation and a kind of ecstatic post-World War I fervor that produced some of the world's greatest and most memorable cultural achievements. On a parallel track, however, in Germany, the rise of the Nazis cast a pall over all of this. By 1933, both Brecht and Weill, who was Jewish, knew that Germany was not a place that they could stay safely. Weill ended up in Paris, and then in the US for the rest of his life, while Brecht bounced around Europe before returning to East Germany after the war, hoping to be a part of the Marxist utopia that he believed had been founded there. The simmering combination of Weill's mastery of transforming popular forms into a unique kind of classical music, along with Brecht's pointed satire and brilliantly inventive libretti, resulted in the Seven Deadly Sins, a piece that brutally satirizes extreme capitalism and the degradation of the human soul that results from it. This is a nakedly political piece, and I should make it clear that by talking about it, by choosing to feature it on the show, and by regularly performing it, I don't necessarily endorse its views. Brecht was extreme in all ways, as we'll get to today. And the power of this piece, in my opinion, doesn't come from those anti-capitalist politics, but from its remarkable and devastating portrayal of a human soul and the tragedies that can befall it. This is one of my favorite pieces of the whole 20th century, and I'm so happy to share it with you today. We'll talk all about the Brecht-Weill partnership and its very angry end, the marrying of popular music and classical music, the debate that Brecht and Weill had about the value of political commentary in music, a debate that rages to this day, and of course, the brilliant music itself. Music that makes us laugh and cry in equal measure. All this and more is coming up on Sticky Notes. To really understand the seven deadly sins, you have to understand the brief, stormy, but powerfully productive collaboration between Brecht and Weill. Brecht and Weill had relatively similar left socialist politics, though Brecht was generally more extreme in his views. The two men had collaborated on a setting of 9 poems by Brecht called the Mahogany Singspiel, but we'll come back to that in a minute. The first major collaboration between the two was on Brecht's anti-capitalist play with music, the Threepenny Opera. For both Brecht and Weill, this was an anti-opera, an attempt to appeal to the working classes with a completely different kind of art, an art that was politically very clear in its intentions, and perhaps even was meant to be more politically moving rather than emotionally moving. This was in line with the influential ideas of the German director Erwin Piscator, who had founded the left-wing proletarian theater in 1920. Piscator's aims couldn't have been any more clear. He wrote, quote, "Comrades, the soul of the revolution, the soul of the approaching society of the classless and communal culture represent our revolutionary feelings. The proletarian theater wishes to ignite this feeling and help keep it alive. The experiences awakened in us by socialist art fortify us in our consciousness of the seriousness and the greatness of the historical mission of our class." The journalist Martin Esslin perhaps sums up Piscator's goals in the most clear way, and this is where Brecht and Weill come in. Esslin wrote about Piscator that, quote, "Piscator sought a topical, highly political theater. He relegated the author to a relatively minor position, and was often content to compile his productions out of newspaper reports or documentary material. Piscator put these spectacles onto a constructivist stage and used graphs of statistics, explanatory captions, lantern slides of photographs or documents, newsreels, and documentary film sequences to convey the political or sociological background of the play, while the propaganda lesson was drawn by choruses, spoken or sung, on stage or in the auditorium, so that the spectators were inevitably drawn into the action. His aim was a theater that would be political, technological, and epic." The Threepenny Opera was in some ways an attempt to continue in Piscator's image, but to the surprise of both men, the piece became wildly popular, which had a lot to do with the brilliant music that Weill wrote to accompany the rather didactic text of the play. Weill was thrilled with the success of the Threepenny Opera, but Brecht was troubled, believing that the all-important left-wing political message of the piece was being drowned out in the excitement over its music. The next collaboration between Brecht and Weill, another play with music, Happy End, was essentially sabotaged by Brecht. At the premiere performance, Brecht instructed his wife, Helene Weigel, to interrupt the third act by pulling out a copy of the Communist Manifesto and reading a lengthy passage from it. Weill was not told in advance about this and was understandably furious. But for both Brecht and Piscator, correct and powerful political messaging was the most important thing. Though Piscator, I will say, was even more extreme than Brecht about this. Brecht did believe in using powerful emotional stories to get his views across, while Piscator essentially believed emotion got in the way of the politics. Brecht and Weill would collaborate twice more, the first collaboration being an opera somewhat based on that first set of 9 songs that Weill had set of Brecht's. The rise and fall of Mahogany, a fictional American city where the only laws are to be as greedy as possible, was another nakedly anti-capitalist work. And by the time the premiere rolled around, Brecht and Weill had many more important things to worry about than whether the proletariat were receiving their message. We know of how deeply polarized German society had become by 1930, and the violent nature and left-wing politics of the rise of Mahogany made it a target for Nazi supporters, who rioted at the premiere of the piece in Leipzig. The aftermath of the riots, as well as cancelled performances in other venues in Germany, laid bare the differences between Weill and Brecht. Weill wanted to play down the political content of Mahogany, writing that the piece wasn't political at all, and that any aspects of the story that seemed to have a political message were just dramatic devices. The very ending of the opera, which many interpreted and interpret today as a call for communism, was, in the views of Weill, not at all communistic, but, quote, rather like Sodom and Gomorrah. Mahogany perishes because of the crimes of its inhabitants. Essentially, Weill wanted to use opera as a way to reach the working class, not to destroy the bourgeoisie entirely. Brecht was the opposite, as he claimed that Mahogany was an attempt to expose the absurdity of the operatic genre and the bourgeoisie. The two artists were on diverging paths, and this is where we reach the 7 Deadly Sins. Technically, the 7 Deadly Sins was a collaboration between Brecht and Weill, but the term collaboration is probably too strong a word for what actually went on. In their 3 previous works, Brecht and Weill had worked closely, if at times acrimoniously. At one point during the work for Rise and Fall of Mahogany, Brecht apparently shouted, quote, "I'm going to throw that phony Richard Strauss down the stairs." The commission for the 7 Deadly Sins came about from an unlikely source, a wealthy British man named Edward James, who was attempting to reconcile with his ballet dancer wife, Tilly Loche. James financially supported an entire season of ballet performances in Paris that would feature Loche in a starring role, and he wanted Weill to write the music for one of these ballets. Weill agreed to the commission, but with a twist. The ballet would have to feature a singer, giving the piece that sung ballet quality. Weill approached Jean Cocteau to write the text for the ballet, but Cocteau said no, so Weill went back to his erstwhile collaborator, Brecht. The two were barely speaking at this point, but Brecht was completely broke and agreed to come to Paris to write the libretto, even though it was for a ballet, an art form Brecht believed was even more hopelessly bourgeois than opera. Brecht stayed in Paris for 1 week, wrote the text, and left. After this experience, Weill described Brecht as, quote, one of the most repulsive, unpleasant fellows running around on this earth.
Down by the Mississippi in Louisiana. Right, Anna? Yes, Anna. She's the one with the looks. I'm realistic.
With that said, Weill still respected and adored Brecht's work, and claimed to be able to separate the man from the artist. It was agreed that the main ballet role of Anna was going to be split into two. Anna 1, who sings and is the more practical and rigid character, and Anna 2, who dances and is the more impulsive and passionate character. It's never made fully clear whether Anna 1 and Anna 2 are in fact the same person, and Brecht plays with this tension throughout the work. The story of the 7 deadly sins is quite simple. Anna is sent by her family to 7 different cities in the United States in order to make money for the family. While in each city, Anna encounters one of the traditional 7 deadly sins. But here's that anti-capitalist and satirical rub. The sin that Anna commits is usually to follow her heart and to behave more morally, rather than to be degraded by what she is forced to do in order to make money. The problem is, her entire purpose, according to her family, is to make money for them. Now, I know this has been a lot of preamble for a piece that is relatively simple musically, but I'm convinced it's really important to understand what Weill and Brecht's aims were here, and to show you the complexities of their relationship, which, in my opinion, actually make it into this score constantly. As we start to listen to the piece now, I've decided to use a version with English translation, since it will be much more simple for me than to have to constantly translate the German text for you, though the original text is in German, and admittedly, it's a little bit more effective in German. The piece begins with a prologue that sets out the main thrust of the story. But let's first talk about the music, which takes you right into a 1920s or early 1930s German cabaret. Just a quick note about the recording. Of course, the piece was originally written in German, but I'm using a version that was recorded in English so I don't have to be constantly translating for you. This recording was done by Marianne Faithfull with the Vienna Radio Symphony, conducted by Dennis Russell Davies. How does Weill create that sound? Well, first with the use of a banjo, an instrument that is not usually seen on a classical music stage. That twang creates a huge amount of the sound, along with the clarinets playing this tune that somehow makes us smile and feel a bit of discomfort at the same time. A perfect metaphor for the journey this piece is about to take us on. This music will be a regular partner for us during the piece, and it takes us right into the Weimar-inflected world that this piece inhabits. The singer Anna 1 now enters for the first time, laying out the parameters of the story.
So my sister and I left Louisiana, where the moon on the Mississippi is a shining ever. Like you always hear in the songs of Dixie, we look forward to our homecoming, and the sooner the better, and the sooner the better.
I do need to mention one more piece of background, because I can't talk about the 7 deadly sins without mentioning her name. That name would be Lotte Lenya, who was Weill's wife and the singer at the premiere of the piece. Weill and Lenya also had a stormy relationship, but their lifelong collaboration resulted in some of Weill's best music, and some unbelievable recordings. Lenya was not a fully trained operatic singer. Instead, she sang in a way that perfectly fit Weill's music. Even though it's in German, I want to share with you the Lotte Lenya sound, since it is so striking and should always be in our ears when it comes to this music.
Meine Schwester und ich stammen aus Louisiana, wo die Wasser des Mississippi unter Monde fließen, wie sie aus den Liedern erfahren können. Dorthin wollen wir zurückkehren, lieber heute als morgen.
Every time you hear a speaking voice, this is Anna 2, who never sings, and in live productions is often played by the same person as the singer. unless a dancer is engaged as well, in which case they sometimes take these short interjections from Anna too, which are always spoken, not sung. It's always through Anna too that you hear the real story, and where you can hear the path of Anna's eventual destruction. Here Anna too responds, quote, "But better today than tomorrow" to Anna 1, implying she'd really rather get this over with. Still, at this early moment, just setting out on the journey, the tone is playful rather than tragic. This is especially true a moment later when Anna 1 says that in 7 years, 7 deadly sins, 7 cities, 7 years, they can go home. And Anna 2 laconically says, in 6 would be nicer.
We look forward to our homecoming, and the sooner the better, and the sooner the better. It's a month already since we started for the great big cities where you go to make money. In 7 years our fortune will be made, and then we can go back. In 6 years would be much nicer.
The next lines really show off Weil's musical abilities to mold the text. At the first mention of Anna's family, the music becomes slightly agitated, but not too much. Everything is subtle so far. And for the text, "For all the money's got to go to build a little home," listen to how Weil changes the harmony and the entire texture to something much more gentle and calm. Weil is setting up Brecht's plot points and textual inflections just with harmony and articulation. This phrase ends with words that will begin to change in meaning as the piece progresses. Anna 1 says, "Right, Anna?" And Anna 2 responds, "Right, Anna."
Our mom and dad and both our brothers wait in old Louisiana, and we'll send them all the money as we make it. For all the money's got to go to build a little house down by the Mississippi in Louisiana. Right, Anna? Yes, Anna.
I'm spending a bit more time on the prologue than I will on the other movements, because so much of the subtext is set out here in just the first few minutes of the piece. The next section of the text returns us back to that very cabaret bum, 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 bum rhythm, while Anna 1 lays out the crux of the piece. You may think that you can see two people, but in fact you see us both as one, and both of us are Anna. Together we've got a single past, a single future, one heart, and one savings account. And we only do what suits each other best. Right, Anna? Right, Anna. This tells us that we are free to interpret the two Annas in any way we want, as one person or as two mirror images. And this complex and extremely flexible approach has allowed dozens of directors to take this piece on in myriad different combinations. Despite their creative and personal differences, Weil and Brecht were perfect for each other.
You see two of us, and both of us are Anna. Together we've but a single past, a single future, one heart and one savings account. And we only do what's best for one another. Right, Anna? Yes, Anna.
The first sin is sloth, laziness for the non-English speakers out there. The music immediately becomes extremely dark and agitated as the family makes their first entrance. The family is played by 4 male singers, and in true cabaret fashion, the bass singer is Anna's mother. It seems that things are not going well as the family laments Anna's laziness and doubts whether she can pull off what the family needs. Weil's music is extremely turbulent, reflecting the anxiety of the family. Weil does something remarkable with this text in that he presents it utterly without judgment. There are no winks at the audience to tell them that they should be disgusted with the family's behavior. No tells. Instead, he portrays the family's anxiety as genuine, and we are left to deal ourselves with the fact that the mother has called her daughter a lazy slut within 5 minutes of the piece's beginning.
Will she not? Will our Anna pull herself together? Lazy bones have fallen, didn't stop, what? For she was always quite a one for an armchair. Lazy bones have fallen, didn't stop, what? Unless you came and hauled her off the mattress. Lazy bones have fallen, didn't stop, what? The lazy slut would lie in bed all morning.
There is very little variety in this music from a harmonic progression standpoint. The family continues to express their worries, and Weill resolutely does not change the music. It hammers us over the head to the point of absurdity. What Weill does, though, is subtly add more and more colors of orchestration to keep the music from becoming monotonous. It is repetitive, but the repetition has a point. Weill slowly adds more brass, more percussion, and more strings to the accompaniment of the family, as if a storm is coming closer and closer.
Anna is, we must admit, a most respectful child.
And finally, with a sadistic edge and bite, the orchestra breaks through, playing music that sounds much bigger and more imposing than the relatively small orchestra that Weill uses. This is acidic music, and it portrays all the bitter, sour grapes of the family towards Anna. And finally, as the movement comes to an end, the entire mood changes. Weill takes the same music that has been relentlessly repeating on the text, "Lazy bones are for the devil's stockpot," and transforms it into a kind of Greek chorus chant. This is another one of the specialties of the piece. The family pays homage at different points to the Greek chorus, to the barbershop quartet, to a cappella music, and of course to cabaret. But they never lose sight of what they want: money from Anna. Now that chord you just heard, a chord made up of the notes C, D flat, F, and G, is going to recur at other crucial moments of the piece. It is a chord of warning, of lament, and of despair. It slowly leads us to the second sin, which begins without a pause, and with a totally different flavor altogether. We have arrived at pride, and Anna has just gotten a job as a dancer. Where? Well, of course, a cabaret.
So we saved up, bought ourselves an outfit. 90s, nylons, beautiful dresses. Soon we found a job that was going. A job as dancer in a cabaret.
The way the movements with Anna are set up allows for a dancer to really become a part of the live experience of the piece. Anna 1 describes Anna 2 as a menace, followed by an orchestral interlude that takes on the same music Anna 1 just sang. Listening without being at a live performance, we are able to imagine a dancer at a cabaret in our mind's eye. Things are about to turn much darker. Anna 1 says that Anna 2 began talking about art, and about the art of cabaret, a subtle dig at what Brecht saw as consumerism and the bourgeois attitude. But as Anna 1 says, that's not the kind of art that the people in Memphis came for.
She began talking about art of all things.
This is where the piece begins to show its dark side even more. Weill picks up the tempo for a much faster version of the waltz, and Anna 1 busts in with sardonic edge to her voice, singing,
And when a man has paid for his evening, he expects a good show in return. So if you cover up your bosom and thighs like you had a rash, you'll be surprised to see them yawning.
Anna 1 has basically told Anna 2 that she needs to become a stripper, and a long orchestral interlude follows which is even more violent than before. Once again, we are able to imagine the beginning of the degradation of Anna 2, though in live performance with a dancer, this becomes even stronger.
So I told.
The coda of the movement features the first and one of the only times Anna 1 sings with the family. The family reprises the prayer from the previous movement, but in the waltz tempo, while Anna 1 complains bitterly about having to convince Anna 2 to, quote, behave. The purity of the male voices and the degrading nature of the text makes for an unsettling combination.
Oh, but I have trouble, I can tell you, with her fancy, pig-headed notion. Night by night I sat by her bedside.
The third sin is anger. Of course, this is not Anna's anger at the things she is being forced to do, but the family's anger that Anna is not making money fast enough. Weill interestingly decides not to open with the full orchestra, but with a churning line of 16th notes played only by the strings and piano. Slowly, the rest of the orchestra begins to join in, adding more fire to the fury of the family.
We're at a standstill. What she's been sending, it's not any money a man can build a house with. She's as giddy as a cyclone, but the puppets go for her to let you and where she understands.
Anna 1 finally enters as the violence reaches a fever pitch, claiming that they have arrived in Los Angeles and that they are making progress. The musical texture thins out, but the churning forward momentum and drive never leaves this movement. Anna 1 seems to imply that they are trying to become actors, and if they can just avoid any mistakes, then they will make it. One of the longest orchestral interludes follows, and this is interesting because Weill leaves a lot to the imagination here of both the audience and a potential choreographer. What happens in the narrative is only revealed later on, but in the meantime the music becomes much less violent, and all that drive is transformed into a bouncy shoeshine rhythm that lightens things up considerably. Is it possible that Anna has succeeded? No, this was a ruse. The family prays again as the music threatens to spill out of control. It seems that things are still going wrong, and yet Anna has not yet explained the problem. Finally, she does. Over that light and seemingly innocent music from the interlude, Anna 1 explains that Anna 2 has been too focused on the injustices, and these injustices are not named, but anyone can imagine what they are, that she experiences on her way to the top in Los Angeles, and that this has prevented her meteoric rise. So what was playful in the interlude now becomes nauseating. Anna 1 explains that having too much righteous anger is actually the problem, not the injustices themselves.
If you take offense at injustice, Mr. Big will show he's offended. If a curse or a blow can enrage you so, your usefulness here is ended. Then mind what the good book tells us when it says...
Anna 1 finishes the movement by saying that she explained to Anna 2 that disapproving of injustice is widely disapproved of. And at the end of the movement, Anna 2 speaks again, saying, "Yes, I know, Anna." It is up to the singer, conductor, and director to decide how that line is spoken. But the key to me is that these spoken interjections are progressing from humor towards tragedy, and how that is done really is the crux of the piece. The movement ends in mystery, and the first section of the Seven Deadly Sins is complete.
Came to where her open disapproval of injustice was so widely disapproved. I forever told her, practice self-control, Anna, for you know how much it costs you if you don't. And she understood and answered, "Yes, I know, Anna."
I said the first section is complete because this is the first movement that ends without Weill instructing the musicians to go on without any pause. This is because we are about to go on to what I consider to be the funniest, but also perhaps the most uncomfortable movement in the piece, gluttony. This movement is scored for the family, who sing almost exclusively a cappella the entire movement. The harmonies here are extremely rich, almost like a barbershop quartet singing through a funhouse mirror. But the overall key is in C major.
We've gotten word from Philadelphia. Anna's doing well, shaking lots of money. The contract has been...
As you can hear, everything seems to be going fine, but the problem with the contract that Anna has signed is that it restricts the amount that Anna can eat, so that she doesn't gain weight. The family innocently sings this like it's the most natural thing in the world, culminating with the line, "There's no market for hippos in Philadelphia."
She likes to eat, she likes to eat. Those are hard times for little Anna, who has always been very greedy. Oh, if she does not break her contract, there's no market for hippos in Philadelphia.
Now a guitar comes in with subtle accompaniment as the quartet fragments out slightly from the rich harmonies of the first part. The bass, playing the mother, begins the next section sarcastically lamenting that they weigh Anna every day.
They weigh her. Wenig half an ounce means 12. The principles to stand. Principles to stand. It's 118. That feet was sweet and she was hiding. Wenig half an ounce.
The guitar now accompanies the tenor, who sings a line that could have come out of a Schubert lieder. And in it, the tenor says how proud he is of Anna for restraining herself. What follows is 4 bars of extremely dark humor. as Weill has the family sing the absolute sweetest music of the movement to a text that I don't need to explain.
But our Anna is not all that stupid, and she knows a contract is a contract. So she'll reason, after all, you still can eat like little Anna in Louisiana. Crab meat, pork chops, sweet corn, chicken, and those golden biscuits.
This is genuinely funny in the way that Weill portrays it, but of course the implications of the humor are quite upsetting. The final phrases of the movement bring back the opening, though the harmonies are somewhat more distorted than they were before. This music is extremely difficult to sing in tune for the four male voices, due to those crunchy harmonies that don't easily lend themselves to the ear. It takes a lot of work to make this music sound totally carefree, and again, to leave the audience to digest, no pun intended, the implications of the words.
Gluttons will be punished. Scabiot grieving sadness. Gluttons never go to heaven.
The fifth movement is, in my opinion, the saddest movement, Lust. The music starts off with bitter articulations and tense harmonies that tell us that things have gotten far darker since leaving Philadelphia. This is probably the darkest music of the piece so far, even more than in the anger movement. The trumpet blares out a dotted rhythm that could have come out of a funeral march, and the atmosphere becomes deeply disturbing. It's remarkable how Weill is able to create this sense of disquiet, despite music that on the page doesn't look threatening at all.
Then we met a wealthy man in Boston.
Anna 1 explains over this tense accompaniment that they have arrived in Boston, where a wealthy man has fallen in love, maybe, with Anna 2, and is paying her lots of money to be with him. It is now accepted in the piece that Anna 2 is being forced to sell her body, and Brecht and Weill both allow this line to go by without any comment from the family or, of course, the orchestra. The first phrase of this section actually ends with silence from the orchestra, for the first time in the piece, to the text.
He paid her a lot because he loved her, but I had to keep a watch on Anna, who was too loving, but she loved another, and she paid him a lot. Because she loved him.
This leads to more seemingly loving music featuring the harp. It's fascinating to me how Weill uses a normal orchestra, and then the strumming instrument changes from movement to movement, whether it's banjo in the opening, guitar in the gluttony movement, and now harp in this movement about love/lust. Anna 1 explains sweetly to Anna 2 that being in love with another man in this situation is a mistake, and that only when she has money can she decide who she wants to be with.
So I said, cheat the man who protects you, and you've lost half your value then. He may pay once, although he suspects you, but he won't pay time and time again.
Now Weill brings back the tense accompaniment from the opening of the movement, as Anna 1 goes to visit Anna 2's lover and breaks off the relationship. Once again, we don't know if Anna 1 and Anna 2 are the same person or not. Everything is left up to the listener. Brecht even adds more confusion by adding this line later on.
So I sent him a long one-way ticket, which it broke his heart to use naturally. And when Anna found out my trick, it looked like broken bones.
So Anna 1 was seeing the lover and Anna 2 was furious about it? Or was it Anna 2 being furious at Anna 1 for making a mistake? Or are the two sides of this single person's personality beginning to fracture and to blur as their degradation is progressing into its final phases? This complexity is present in the music as well. All of this is sung over that sweet accompaniment from earlier on. Now Weill puts it all together. He takes the tense accompaniment music, the lecturing music from the middle section, and adds more rhythmic tension over all of it to make the final point of the movement. After another prayer from the family, Anna explains that love is not available to any woman who does not yet know her place. The orchestra gets louder and louder during this section as if to protest, but it is all for nothing. And for once, the family is satisfied. We now hear music that comes from the prologue as we enter the coda of the movement. Anna explains that all is well again, but the music is tired, and there's no sense of resolution from it. And at the end of the movement, the wail from the sloth movement returns for the first time, as Anna 2 speaks once more, a moment that is absolutely heartbreaking and even terrifying in its emotional weight.
Then the endless nights I heard my sister sobbing bitterly and repeating, it's right like this, Anna. But so hard.
The sixth sin is greed, a pretty relevant sin considering what we have been experiencing so far in the piece. The music is back to a 3/4 rhythm, but this is nothing like a waltz. It is violent music that, like in Ravel's La Valse, pulverizes the waltz idea and leaves it for dead. There is not much pretense left in this music, and there is less and less innocence as we head towards the final two sins and the epilogue. The mother is thrilled again as Anna has arrived in Baltimore and seems to be doing extremely well. People are falling all over themselves to be with her, and she is seemingly a wildly successful prostitute. Weill again doesn't have the orchestra react to this, except that the music is slightly more rhythmically complex than it has been before. In some ways, I can compare this music to the David Lynch movie Mulholland Drive. We have no idea what is real, what is fantasy, what is the world, and what is a distortion of it. This sense continues as the movement goes on. The family now begins to fret about a different problem. Is Anna going too far? Has she degraded herself to a point where she's no longer attractive? More importantly, did she make enough money before this has happened? When I describe it like this, the text can seem quite didactic. But unlike much of Brecht's other writing, the message is clear, but also not overly heavy-handed. Weil's music helps with this, keeping a constantly shifting and undulating accompaniment, moving the music forward. Now a tenor begins a long sermon about greed, making sure that one can't be seen to be too ambitious and too interested in making money. He finishes with a Wagnerian boast that all must keep this law. Nowhere is it indicated that the family possesses an ounce of self-awareness that they are the ones who have put Anna in this situation. The final sin, envy, begins as the first sin, sloth, ended. The harmonies are dissonant again, as Anna explains that they have arrived at their final city, San Francisco. Gone is the motoric accompaniment, gone is the frivolousness of the scenes before, and gone is any sense of a waltz or of dance music. Instead, we only hear resignation and exhaustion.
And the last big town we came to was San Francisco. Life there was fine, only Anna felt so tired and grew envious of others.
Weil now begins a series of repetitious phrases that underline all the things that Anna too is envious of. Anna 1 sings these in sequence, with Weil writing bitterly marked and violent interjections after each one.
Of those who pass the time at their ease and in comfort, those too proud to be bought, of those whose wrath is kindled by injustice, those who act upon their impulses happily.
This phrase is played a total of 7 times. Each sin has been explained now in the way that we are meant to understand them, that the 7 deadly sins, when performed in a righteous manner, are actually moral. But in the sad tale we have been witnessing, Anna 2 now commits the final sin, envy, by envying all those who perform the other sins in a moral way. This is the level of complexity in the text, and so Weil does not aim for complexity in the music. It's the central message of the piece, and Weil allows it to be portrayed in a devastating way.
Lovers true to their loved ones, and those who take what they need without shame.
Weil will end this 7th sin with a march that once again strains the bounds of repetition. We will hear the same violent music played 5 times, almost every time the same way, as Anna 1 gives one final lecture to her exhausted Anna 2, explaining once again that the 7 deadly sins are being committed by others, not in a moral way, but in a way that destroys them as well.
From birth we may write our own story, and anything we choose we are permitted to do. But the proud and insolent who strut in their glory, little they guess, little they guess, little they guess the fate they're swaggering to. Sister, be strong.
On the 5th iteration of the march, the family's prayer returns, almost screamed out by the 4 singers. I have written in my score, apocalyptic, as the level of agony and devastation here is almost unbearable. And with one final wail, all of it disappears.
A bad or rejected forever, gnashing their teeth, gnashing their teeth, gnashing their teeth in a gibbering voice.
We have entered the epilogue as Anna returns home to Louisiana. The music is a mirror image to the prologue, but the atmosphere couldn't be any more different.
We're coming back to you, Louisiana, where the moon on the Mississippi is a shining ever. 7 years we've been away in the big towns, where you go to make money. And now
The 7 years away have been, in a financial sense, a success. The family can now build their house. But the last word goes to Anna too, who answers her sister's ever-present question, right, Anna? With a resigned, exhausted, and frankly destroyed, right, Anna.
in Louisiana, right, Anna? Yes, Anna.
This is a fascinating piece in so many ways, because despite the clear anti-capitalist messaging that Brecht is trying to imply, you could easily ignore all that and just take this music as a human tragedy about the things that can go wrong when an ambitious family sends a child out into the big world. What Anna goes through is shocking, and I think that a performance of this piece is not successful if you don't leave the hall profoundly disturbed at what you've witnessed, whether it's from a political sense, if you share these politics, or from a human sense. I found a set of liner notes written by David Drew that I think sums up the complexity of this piece perfectly. Quote, "Those who merely hear parody and gluttony have heard nothing. Those who find it one of music's rare opportunities for genuine and warm laughter have heard a lot. Those who start by laughing and then discover in their laughter a certain pain, a searching pathos, have heard it all." To me, this is one of the great masterpieces of the 20th century, and though I imagine this might not have been what you expected when you started listening today, I hope that despite the seriousness of the topic and the disturbing imagery that you've heard described here today, that you have enjoyed this episode and are ready to go hear this masterpiece performed live. Right, listener?
Speak low when you speak low. How summer day withers away. Too soon, speak low. When you speak low, our moment is swift like
Thanks so much for listening to Sticky Notes today. We'll have some more exciting stuff for you in a couple of weeks, so don't miss our next episode. If you like what you heard today, please feel free to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It really helps the show gain more visibility. Please send any questions to stickynotespodcast@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support the podcast monetarily, just head over to patreon.com/stickynotespodcast. Thanks, and I'll talk to you again after a while.
That tomorrow is near, tomorrow is here, and always too soon.